Over the last few days, you might have seen headlines around the cost of crime in our country. How it appears crime is costing us around 10% of our economic output. It's a huge figure. If you think about how much money you spend on security and on insurance and on protecting yourself and your family, you can imagine how quickly these costs mount up. The headlines actually come from a study by the World Bank. It found crime is costing us, according to their estimate, around 700 billion rand a year. The person who wrote the study is Benedicte Baduel, a senior economist at the World Bank. She's also the lead author of this report. Benedicte, good afternoon to you. How did you work out these numbers? How did you work out that crime is costing us so much money?
Good afternoon, Stephen. So yes, indeed, the starting point of this work is that we're looking at the general state of the economy and the return to a trend of low growth and low employment, and we are looking into the structural constraint of higher and more inclusive growth. And it came to us that crime is on everybody's mind. It's an obvious constraint, but there were a few studies that were actually out there trying to quantify the overall cost. So we look at what data was available, and so we decided to focus on what we have, which are data on economically motivated crime, and to look at the impact on households, businesses, and the public sector. And so we use survey data or reports from sector-specific economic sectors, and so we arrived at this quantification, this estimation of at least 10% of GDP. If you allow me to maybe explain a little bit more what are these costs, we can group them in three buckets. So we have what we call transfer costs for about 3% of GDP, which are like the direct losses that households or firms suffer as a result of being a victim of crime. Then we have what we call the protection cost, and you've mentioned it. It's security, it's insurance, again, that households and firms spend on an annual basis, and that sums up to about 4% of GDP. And then the last bucket is the opportunity cost, and those are the most difficult to fully quantify, and we're only able to look at some of these missed opportunities in terms of economic activity, export, or fiscal revenue and spending, and we're able to quantify 3% of GDP for those. But again, these especially are a lower bound estimate.
Is it possible to know how quickly crime levels have risen? I mean, we all know from our daily lives that crime sort of exploded after the pandemic. Is that what you found?
So, crime has been high and persistently high, for a long time in South Africa. If you look at for example, the murders rate, it's been in the top 5, in the world for a long time, but there's been a worsening in the recent period. What we see more specifically, after the COVID-19 pandemic, or during and after, is a rise in what we call domestic organized crimes, which takes different forms, but we've seen a rise of kidnappings, hijackings, and, for example, infrastructure theft.
I suppose some crimes are also more expensive than others. I mean, murder literally claims someone's life, and if there's a big increase in the number of murders, you'd see a huge increase in the financial cost. And in fact, that's what we've seen. We had a sort of crime low in the murder rate in 2011, and then in the last 3 years, the murder rate's just gone up hugely. Yes,
absolutely. So there's a lot of different crimes and a lot of different costs associated to these crimes. As I mentioned at the beginning, our study actually focuses on, for the costing exercise, because the policy discussion and the diagnostic part covers a broader range of crimes, because they are linked between each other. But the costing exercise focuses on economically motivated crimes such as robberies, burglaries, and it doesn't actually try to quantify the cost of contact crimes such as murders or gender-based violence. And as you mentioned, there are also huge costs associated with those, from medical expenses to, impacts on lifelong outcomes for murders, obviously, death, but also for other forms of violence, long-term trauma and impacts on long-term outcomes.
Benedicte, why do you think this has happened? What happened after the pandemic in our society that led to this? It seems, governments seem to get weaker somehow, and that's certainly one of the causes.
So one of the things that we look at in the report is the efficiency of public spending on public safety and order. And what we find is that it's actually relatively high compared to other countries in the world. But despite that, crimes have been persistently high and deteriorating in the recent period. And so we link that with a declining in the capacity of the police and justice institutions to combat crime, through investigation, solving crime and prosecution, and that of course has created somehow a vacuum in terms of the efficiency to deter crime and have high opportunity cost of crime, and that has created the space for crime to thrive, and especially these more complex forms of organized crime.
Obviously, trying to reduce crime, lots of people talk about this all the time. Are there particular and obvious solutions you think we can look to that would help to reduce crime? And obviously, this is about strengthening the police, getting more convictions, strengthening the National Prosecuting Authority, giving the National Prosecuting Authority more money as well, things like that?
So, there's definitely, we need to recognize and acknowledge that, crime is a multidimensional concept, and so addressing it requires broad intervention across different sectors. But definitely one of those intervention and priority areas is to restore the capacity of the police and justice institution to solve crime and prosecute it, and that is to reduce the attractiveness in a way of committed crimes. And so for that, you need to strengthen the skills within these institutions, strengthen the strategic approach to prioritizing, the combat against crime. What we also do highlight is that, combating crimes and addressing crime over the long term also requires improving opportunities for people in the legal economy, and that requires structural reforms to boost growth and job creation. And we also find, because we do present in the report some examples of successful intervention in other countries, and we do find internationally that intervention of violence prevention in the most at-risk population also help reducing crimes. And so that's also an area that could be scaled up in South Africa.
We also know, and this is, in a way, Mac, you've seen this political comment, but in one of our provinces in the Western Cape, the murder rate has gone down, and it's gone up in several provinces dramatically. So it's gone up in KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape, and Gauteng. One presumes that there are lessons that people in those provinces could learn from what's happened in the Western Cape.
Yes, so we do highlight international examples. There are also, as you say, intervention within South Africa that have been successful and that can be reinvigorated and learned from to fight crimes in the country. One example as well that we show in the report is the Gauteng aggravated robbery strategy that was implemented in the late 2000s, and within that time, led to a reduction of the crimes that were targeted. So they are in different provinces, successful intervention that can definitely, be part of the policy debate about what to do at the, in the entire country.
I don't know how far down the political road you'll go, Benedicte, but I think some people feel that politicians aren't actually taking this seriously. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, I think it has been, government does recognize I think the importance of the issue, and it has put it at the forefront, I think, of its policy priorities. South Africa also has strengths and generally, good laws, and so, it's about, prioritizing, policy design and then ensuring that there is some implementation of those strategies.
Benedicte Baduel, thank you. Senior economist at the World Bank and lead author of that report. Really do appreciate it.